The Knock&Talk Show is a certified veteran-hosted podcast. Show your support. Tune in, share, and subscribe.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Knock&Talk Show. This is episode number 15, and today we are honored to have a very special guest, a U.S. Navy veteran, a law enforcement veteran, and author. D.A. Michaels is here with us, and Donna, thanks for coming on the show, being a guest.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've been working at trying to get this thing scheduled for a few weeks, and I'm glad it's finally here.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we have, well, like I said, you are a U.S. Navy veteran as well as a law enforcement veteran. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your book as well, and then we'll get more into the book with a full plug at the end of the show.
Sounds good. Okay, so my name, like you said, is D.A. Michaels. I go by Donna. The reason I don't introduce as Donna Michaels is because when I was picking a name for my book and I decided to Google Donna Michaels, I found out there was another author with that name who writes hot, steamy romance novels with Navy SEALs and cowboys and such. And I'm like, oh, no, we don't want to get confused with mistaken identity with that one. So we decided to go with our initials instead. So, okay. So I tell everybody, I'm DA, for Google purposes, I'm DA, but just call me Donna. So, like you said, I was in the Navy and did 4 years. I spent some time, 3 of those 4 years working alongside Navy SEALs in a support role position. And then I was kind of partied through my 20s when I got out, like I think a lot of people do, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And then I got conned into becoming a cop. It was so far down on my radar of things I wanted to do, but I did a ride along and I got hooked with the adrenaline. And I'll never forget what I said at the end of that midnight shift is, man, I knew there were stupid people in this world, but I didn't know how many. So, and I decided that was going to be, I like adventure. I liked adrenaline, definitely no monotony. So I went down that path. And then recently this past summer, I retired after 21 years when my book came out, and I've been real busy talking about it and meeting some incredible people. And I think the best part of retirement so far is finding out that not everybody is an asshole. That there are actually really nice people in this world. And now I'm getting to meet a lot more of them. So I'm definitely enjoying that part of retirement.
It is a difference when you're shagging calls and dealing with people and then just dealing with normal people in normal settings.
Yes. Yeah. Big difference.
I noticed that myself as well. Well, the name of your book is Courageously Broken. And I've read it cover to cover. It's a great book.
Thank you.
I highly recommend. Here is the cover. It is on Amazon, which is where I got it.
Yep.
And
any other retail store, you can get it.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's most popularly sold there.
But that would require people leaving their homes and going to a store.
Yeah, actually, no, it's not in shelves, but okay. I think you're right. I think what they have to do is if they go to, say, a Barnes & Noble or a Books A Million, they actually have to have it ordered through the store. But I think they said that they have the option of having it shipped to their home or shipped to the store. Okay. When it gets to a certain point, sales numbers and stuff, stores will start carrying them in their stores. But for now, it's online, and Amazon is definitely probably the most popular location. I think that's where everybody buys all their books pretty much.
Yes. And everything else that they need.
I'm very guilty of that. Yes.
So what made you write this book?
Okay. We promised we weren't going to get too serious on here.
Not too
So
serious, but
yeah.
just serious enough.
All right. So 2017, I had the week from hell, where I responded to a really awful call. That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in my life, because I had other crappy things going on that were already pretty heavy. And when that really awful call happened, it just sent me down the rabbit hole and put me in a really bad place. And I, being a CIT officer for most of my career, knew that I needed help, but I knew also better than to ask for it, because I'm like, nope, that'll be the end of my career. Embarrassment, shame, all the whole stigma and the dark voices. And, fortunately, I had one person I truly trusted who was a veteran and also had PTSD. And at this point, I didn't think I had PTSD. I didn't know what the hell was wrong with me. I just knew I was in a really bad place and I didn't know how to get out of it. So I called him, and he spent 8 hours on the phone with me, talking sense into me, and promised that he wouldn't call the officials if I promised to get some help, and kind of coach me on how to get help on the down low.
Okay.
So while I was getting help, I was journaling, looking for answers to all of the whys in my life. And the journal later was shared with the same close personal friend, and he convinced me to publish it into a book. He said, "This is awesome. You could really help a lot of people who are struggling. You've got, your story needs to be told." And I'm like, okay. Well, first day wasn't okay. First, I told him he was crazy as hell. I was no way. I'm like, dude, you think the lock on the black box in the brain was something? You should see how the lock on the skeleton full of closets. Yeah. So, but he said, "No, I'm telling you." He goes, "Everybody's got that crap. Everybody does." He goes, "I know you. I've known you for 30 years. You're not a bad person." He said, he goes, "You need to share this." So we converted it to a book, and I crossed my fingers, held my breath, and said my prayers. And fortunately, it's been a huge success. So I've been blessed. I kind of now realize that maybe I went through all that crap for a reason, so that I could help others realize that they're not alone. Because when you're in that dark hole, you feel like you're the only one in the universe. You don't really understand that there are other people that will understand.
Yeah. Well, it is a great book. And there's lots of different periods of your life that are covered in this book. Mm-hmm. And what I want to focus on are some of the funny stories that you share in the book. And it's chock full of some good stuff.
It's definitely a roller coaster.
Yes. So hop in the Wayback Machine with me.
Okay.
That's what I like to say. And let's go back to basic training.
Oh, Lord, you are going way back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because this is a show for not just LEOs, but first responders. I'm not a show.
And veterans.
And for military veterans as well. And it's a natural progression for veterans to get into public service once they get out. So our history is full of funny stories, and you outlined some in your basic training time.
Okay. You might have to trigger my memory, but go ahead.
So being a female in the Navy, pre 9/11, back in, it was the 80s.
1989.
Okay. Yep. So you were 6-ish years ahead of me before I went in. And I was in the Air Force, so I don't know a lot about the Navy. I know, yes, I get that all the time. Thank you. I know a few Navy people, Navy veterans, and so there were some stark differences between the way they were treated and the way we were treated. And so what was it like being a young female going into the Navy at a time where there weren't very many females going into the military service, and it wasn't really in your book, you said that your parents really didn't want you doing it because it wasn't what women did, right?
No, No. That was my mom. My
Mom.
mom wanted to join the Navy, and her
That's-
father said he was a World War II vet. And he's like, oh, no. Of course, that would have been the 60s.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, back then. No, my parents were very supportive.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm fourth generation Navy on my mom's side, and second on my dad's, and the first female. And they knew that I had no interest in college. You know, I really I was jonesing to see the world and wanted to get out of that small town. And I really knew my parents couldn't afford college. We didn't have all the opportunities that are out there today. So for me, it was my ticket out of the small town, away from my crazy family, and to see the world.
Okay.
And serve my country, of course.
Right. And that's, sorry, I'm a slow reader when I read a book.
It's okay, I am too.
And I started the book a while ago, and I guess I blended those two chapters together. But what was it like being a young woman going into the military from a small town?
You know, that's really hard to answer because I was so freaking gung-ho. I mean, it was, dude, talk about laser focus, you know? And I remember, and I think I wrote about this, that I was in MEPS, where you get enlisted and you get ready to get shipped off. And I felt like a piece of meat because all the young lads that were, you know, oh, we're going away for 8 weeks, you know, and they were like, I never had so much freaking attention in my life because I was like, I kind of felt like the last woman on the face of the earth. And this was the last opportunity they had to ever get laid. But, you know, I was literally like shoving my hotel room door closed, saying, yes, thank you. Have a good night. Have a good night. It was nice talking to you too. Good night. You know, it was insane, you know? But I remember laughing about it because I understood the psychology of it, you know, at that age, 18, 19 years old, in a young lad's brain, 8 weeks, you know, or however long A school is and all that, they didn't know when the next time their chance would be. So, you know, but like I said, I was so laser focused on what I wanted to do that I'm like, I ain't screwing up everything doing something stupid like this. Cause, you know, as a female at that age, that's just not a big priority for us, or at least back then it wasn't. Nowadays things have changed, but you know, back then my focus was my goal, what I wanted to do. And that was certainly not on the radar. So, but yeah, I know you kind of felt like a little bit like a piece of meat. But then what I learned quickly is that if you don't mix, how do I say this? If you don't mix the bedroom with your professional life, you actually earn respect. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I made it very clear that that was not what I was interested in, they were respectful, and for the most part, you know, were respectful. And, you know, I became more of like a sister. So, you know, it was like, okay, she's a no-go, friend zone. And yeah, friend zone. And that's exactly where I wanted to be, was the friend zone. So for the most part, it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, cause it was no different than dealing with high school boys. Seriously. I mean,
No, I imagine not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from a small town where there was nothing to do but drink and party and have sex. So, I mean, I was used to it. I was used to guys making asses of themselves, pretty much.
Well, right out of basic, you got shipped off to an island. Right?
Oh God, yeah.
Yes. We won't spend a whole lot of time there because I want to get to what everybody else wants to hear about.
Okay.
The SEALs. So
always.
Yes. But that chapter is a very important chapter in the book. It sort of sets the tone for the rest of the book.
For the rest of my life.
Yes. Well, fair. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's just skip on over to the SEALs.
Okay. Long story short, how about this? Long story short, Terceira is an island in the North Atlantic, part of the Azores, 1,000 miles off the coast of Portugal. The island is so small that when I had graduated A school, they told me I had to go to jump school first because it was too small to land a plane. Of course, that's just one of many pranks that they pull on you when you're new in the military. So I, of course, cried, thinking I don't want to jump out of a plane. But then they laughed and said, no, the island is 11 by 7 miles big. And there's one part of it that's just big enough for an airstrip. And so, 15 months on a really tiny island and nothing to do for 6 months of the year, because it was literally like God decides to have a sense of humor in the month of November, and he flips the switch, and it's like being in a Cat 2 hurricane for 6 months. And then May rolls around and God goes, okay, you've had enough, click. And then the sun comes out and it's beautiful for 6 months. So that's what the Azores are like. And we'll just leave it at that.
Okay. So you mentioned at the beginning that you did serve alongside the SEALs in a combat support role, right? An administrative role.
Right.
But those guys like to party, and
all sailors like to party.
Well, fair.
They just know how to do it on a whole other level.
Going from the Azores, you went home for a short period of time before going to where? Where were you stationed? With
Panama.
Panama. Okay.
The country, Panama.
The country. Right after
Just Cause.
Just Cause. Okay.
Yeah, right after we took out Manuel Noriega.
Okay. What were those parties like? Now, in the book, you go to your very first one, and what?
The first weekend I'm there.
The first weekend you're there, and what comes flying off the top balcony?
A very handsome, well-built, large, muscular man, like the epitome of physique, right? And he was the houses in Panama, many of them, not all, but most of them were built on stilts. So you the garage was under the home, and then you went upstairs, you had the first level of the house, and there was a second level to the house, and it was a duplex. So you have the same thing on the opposite side. So we pull in, and what would have been the second story window was actually the main floor.
Okay.
And it was the kitchen, and he had opened the window because people were partying, they were in the yard, they were in the house, kind of everywhere. And he took Everclear and mouthful of Everclear, and he did the classic, light the flame and tried to blow a human blowtorch out the window. The problem was the wind was blowing at him and blew the Everclear on his face, and his whole face was on fire. So as we are pulling into the driveway, it's like, I don't know anybody. This is my first SEAL party. I look up, and there is a guy standing in the window with his face on fire, and another guy who's like, I got it. And he grabs a frozen steak, like a big freaking porterhouse type steak, and he's whacking him in the face, trying to put the flames out. So I guess the guy, and I leave names out for obvious reasons, because so the guy with his face on fire says, screw this, I got a better idea. I'm gonna, his version of stop, drop, and roll was more like, jump, drop, and roll. So he jumped head first out of this second story window, landed in the yard, and rolled around and got his face put out. And then they, made sure he was okay. And as we know, as cops, drunks always survive crashes. Same thing. He got right up. I'm okay. And, that was, everybody got a good laugh. And that was the end of that. So I remember sitting there thinking, what in the hell have I gotten myself into? The small town, North Carolina girl. Like, I'm from Florida originally, but I went to high school up in North Carolina, and I had never seen anybody like this before. I mean, this was like I said, it's a whole nother level of partying. It's pretty extreme.
Welcome to the crazy train, right?
Yeah. But I tell you, it was a blast.
They also like to pull pranks, right?
Oh yeah.
What's your favorite that you were either saw, witnessed, exposed to the middle?
I got it. And I don't even think this is in the book. It just came to my mind. So it's the jungle. It's Panama. right?
Mhm.
And we have very large snakes in the area. And I didn't know this, but apparently after a constrictor eats its prey, it goes into almost like a semi-comatose state while it processes and digests its meal.
Okay.
So I'm leaving the unit one night, and I was on my way home, and I see this huge pile of whatever laying in the middle of the road. When my headlights get to it, I realize it's not. I thought somebody had literally dumped like a big garbage bag in the middle of the road. When I got to it, I realized that's not a garbage bag. That's a freaking snake. And it was enormous python. I mean, just giant. And it wasn't moving. Like, because I'm sitting there, like it just was coiled up in the middle of the road. That's where it decided it was going to do its thing. So I turned the car around. I go back to the unit, which is where their barracks were. And I knocked on one of the doors. It's so funny. I get to the door and I knock on it, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, I'm standing in the doorway, and I'm like, "There's this huge snake." And before I could say another word, they all jump because they're bored. They all jump up out of their bed, plow over me. Where is it? Where is it? And I'm like, good Lord, it's up the road. It's right by the chow hall. They're like, okay. So, one jumps in with me, and the other ones, they were off on foot because to them, that was nothing. They could run there faster than I could drive there. By the time I turn around and get out, they're already there. And it took 4 of these guys with all the muscle they had to lift this snake up and put it in the back of I had one of those little geo trackers, like a wannabe Jeep, like little compact roller skate thing. Yeah, that's what I had. So they put it in the back, which I was less than happy about. They're like, "Don't worry, we got it." They're back there with it, to make sure it doesn't hurt anybody. We go back to the unit, and anybody who serves in the military is going to know what this is. They were the kit bags, the big duffel bags, the giant ones that, people would put their gear in. Mm-hmm. You know how big those things are, right? Mm-hmm. So they put it in one of the kit bags, and they put it in one of the guys' bunks. And this particular guy who wasn't there, it was terrified of snakes, terrified of them. That was like his phobia. So they just left it in his bunk, and they just went back to what they were doing and figured when he got back. And sure enough, he got back, and he's like, "Man, who left their shit on my bunk?" And he goes to open it up, and there's the snake. And they had it right where the head was, like right there, Oh my God. They said he freaking just was out the door and cursing and yelling, "Get that shit out of there." No. So yeah, they were, and then I've heard stories about the same guy where they found one and somebody brought it on one of the we're talking third world crap, the kind you see in movies with the chickens and the crazy things that people catch rides on in the jungles of South America. They were telling me a story once where they were down in South America and on a similar type transportation kind of thing. Okay. And it was a bus though. And they brought a snake on and they, let him see it. And he went out the window, was riding on top of the bus. He's like, he hated snakes, hated them. So, and if he's watching this, he knows exactly who I'm talking about. He's probably cursing me, when he sees this, but
I can hear the high pitched schoolgirl squeal.
Yeah. Combined with the low baritone sailor cussing, Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, it was just, and that's the thing. And you would know from being in law enforcement, it's hours of boredom followed by moments or, seconds of chaos. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of downtime in between the chaos. And that's when the shenanigans happen, right? That's when the pranks happen. And yeah. And so it was always something. You were always on your toes.
Like the time the nativity scene, the camels were stolen from the
Oh yeah. That's a classic example. You want me to tell you?
Yes.
Okay. So these were the boat guys. These weren't SEALs. They're SWIT guys, and they work side by side with SEALs. They're the ones, like if you've ever seen the movie Act of Valor, they're the ones that drive the fast boats and do the insertion and extractions and stuff. Okay. So these were boat guys, equally crazy, different job, but equally crazy. And the base had built this really nice roadside nativity scene where the Panamanian highway went by the base. So it was off base. Actually, it was on base, but you could see it from the main road. So, and their barracks were nearby, and somebody got a wild hair to go out there and mess with the camels and put him into assuming the position pose. So the next morning, the base commander's wife goes driving by and she sees the camels and doing the doggy style, and she was very pissed. So they got into a lot of trouble. They got in trouble for that one, because they know every time something like that happened, they knew exactly, pretty much this is something that the boat guys would do. The SEALs are really good at not getting in trouble. Okay. Like I don't know if it was because they just kept their stuff in-house really, really well, whereas the boat guys just didn't give a shit. Like they didn't care. It was whatever. And if you got in trouble, you got in trouble, you pay the consequence, you move on. It was, it was never anything illegal or criminal. It was just, it was always for a good laugh. The Budweiser balloon. Yep. The Budweiser balloon.
Yeah. And there's a follow-up question to that story later on.
Okay.
When we get to your law enforcement career.
Okay.
But how did the balloon end up missing?
Like for real? Or you want the truth, or you want the story I told?
What's in the book? What's in the book?
Okay. So all right. I had a roommate, and still best friends to this day. We still vacation together. She came down here when I had shoulder surgery recently, and just to take me to the hospital all the way from Kentucky, and I'm in Florida.
Oh, that's nice.
So we're like the sister I never had, so she's also a small town girl from, Western Kentucky, that strong Southern accent, that apparently a lot of men can't turn down a one with a Southern accent. But anyway, so we're coming out of the club, the base Anchorage Club, enlisted club. And there was some sort of a festival going on, and they had this 2-story giant inflatable Budweiser balloon. And, everybody was feeling pretty good. I wasn't drinking that day for some reason, or I wasn't drunk. I was like the only one with a level head that day. So I said, she says, I sure like that balloon. I sure would like to have it. Well, you don't say things like that around SEALs, because asking ye shall receive. And so they were like, okay. So they pulled the plug, deflated the thing, rolled it up. And I'm like, what the hell are y'all going to do with a 2-story balloon? Like, seriously. And they just said, ha, ha, ha. And they just kept on going, and they're all laughing and everything. This is hilarious. Then they try to put it in my little roller skate geo tracker. Like they didn't even get 1/8 of it into the back. And like the rest of it was laying on the road behind it. Like, it was huge. I'm like, y'all are stupid. That's not going to fit. So I had the car keys, and I'm like, nope, I'm out. I got nothing to do with this. And I just walked away, and I'm like, they can't take it if they don't have the car keys. Right. Next thing I know, that was on Saturday, I think. Monday rolls around, and somebody reports it stolen. And somebody said that the last place they saw it, like a witness on the base, I don't know who it was, somebody said they saw it in a blue geo tracker with the name Donna written on the tire cover. I'm like, could it have been any more obvious? So I get called.
How many of those are on base?
On the base? Oh, I don't even know. But I mean, my command, we were our own little tight-knit group on a Navy base. We kind of had our own little section to it, very tight-knit. We didn't associate with anybody else. We kept things tight in our circle. So I get called in by my warrant, and he's laughing his butt off. And he goes, you know anything about a stolen balloon? And I just was like, the look on my face was just guilt, just total guilt. And he's like, I don't want to know anything. Go talk to the Master Chief. Yes, sir. So I go into the Master Chief's office, and I'm allowed to say his name. It's Herschel Davis. If you look up Navy SEAL Herschel Davis, you'll see an extraordinarily gregarious character. He's been on the Discovery, documentaries. I'm like, he goes back to Vietnam. He is as salty as they come.
Okay.
And he was my Master Chief. And I walk in, And he's like, what the hell have y'all gotten done now? And I'm like, sir, I don't know. I said, they tried. I said, but it did not leave in my car. I said, it was too big. I said, I walked away. I told him I had nothing to do with it. I did not take that balloon. I don't know who took that balloon, but it wasn't me. He said, all right, damn it. He said, well, NCIS is asking to talk to you, so you better get your ass over there. So I was scared to death. So I go over to NCIS. I got interrogated for hours over this stupid balloon. And they're like, you're telling us, you expect us to believe you don't know who took that balloon. I said, I'm telling you that I know who deflated it. And I know who, the last time I saw it, they were trying to put it in my car, but it did not leave in my car. And I left. I don't know what happened to it. And that was the truth. So he says, well, it left somehow. And the witnesses say it was your car. I'm like, do you seriously look at my car? Do you think it would fit in my car? No, I did not take that balloon. Well, who did? We know, you know. And I'm like, I said, and I'm sitting there going, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. So I said, I did see a big 2.5 going that way when I was walking back to my barracks. I'm like, had a bunch of Marines in it. It's probably the Marines. All right. Well, we'll look into that. Well, meanwhile, the Master Chief is making, he's calling the boys on board on deck and saying, hey, she's over there getting tore up because of you idiots. Somebody better fess up, give up that balloon, right? Because in the meantime, he's behind the scenes negotiating. Well, if we find your balloon for you, will you drop all this and make it go away? And I guess that's the deal that they negotiated while I was getting, interrogated. So somebody made an anonymous call and told them where they could find the balloon. And they found the balloon. The whole thing went away. But I'm like, when all else fails, blame it on the Marines. Always got away with it. Always worked. Because the only difference between SEALs and Marines is Marines get stupid and they got caught, right? So SEALs are very, very, very intelligent men. Like the shenanigans and stuff, but I will say this much. You can't be a SEAL and be a stupid person. They're all extremely intelligent people.
Well, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of intelligence and SEALs, you were able to go on a training op.
Yeah.
As if I'm not mistaken, the first female to go on one of these training ops.
That's what I was told. Okay. To my knowledge, I was the first female to be allowed to go on such a expedition, right? Because this was the 80s. Women weren't allowed in combat roles yet. We weren't allowed to go into combat. We weren't, so I couldn't go on a real op, obviously.
Right.
But they would train, just like us. We train like we want to perform. So they make it as realistic as possible. And so I was allowed to go on a training op in the jungle for 10 days.
And this training op was like a capture the flag type kind of thing. You were in a group as the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
And the SEALs were supposed to try to find you before you accomplished your mission.
Correct.
That
was very well put.
Okay. See, I did read the book. There were 3 great stories in that chapter. 3 funny things that I think hearing them spoken instead of just reading the words, and I was looking forward to. So you set up camp on like this little island for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was time to go trekking through the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
And in which time there were several days that passed, 2 days, 3 days, and it was time for a shower or a bath.
Yeah, that was probably more like 5 days. That was at least the halfway point. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us where you were directed to help remove some of the jungle stench.
Oh, it wasn't just stench, dude. Mind you, I was 21 years old at the time. I had hair down to below my shoulder. Of course we kept it up when we were working, but when you're in the jungle, and it was monsoon season. So the monsoon season, everything was mud. Like you took a step and you sunk to your knees, and like, I'm not lying. When I took off my cami jacket, it was so caked in mud that it would stand rigid by itself. Like it was disgusting, So my hair at this point is the same way. Everything, because there's thick jungle canopy. So all that rain that would come down would have to go through all that jungle canopy and pick up whatever's, in the trees in the jungle. So like, I look like the Swamp Thing, right? Like literally like dirty, filthy, my hair's nappy, just, it was gross. So anyway, that's going to look really good on video. Oh Lord, have mercy. I start having flashbacks, and it's like, oh God, that was so disgusting. So anyway, I grew up in North Carolina, like I said, Western North Carolina, in the mountains. So we had, literally like land of the waterfalls, where you couldn't have to go very far. And there was a beautiful waterfall and a swimming hole and an actual stream or river. Or to me, a river is like the Mississippi, like huge, right? A stream is something that you can wade in and fish in and things of that nature. Creek, stream, same thing.
Okay.
Coming from the mountains of North Carolina, that's my image of a stream. These guys tell me, oh yeah, just up over the ridge, up over the hill, there's a stream. If you want to go, clean up, you can go up there. So I'm thinking, stream? Yeah, I can do this. I can do this. I'm from the mountains. I mean, we used to go swimming in water holes all the time. Didn't bother me at all. So I go up over the ridge to find the stream, and I'm walking and I can't find it. I can't find it. And finally I hear the trickling of water, and I find it. And I kid you not, I could have peed more than this stream. It was this tiny trickle of water that, like, my kitchen sink can put out more water than this thing did, right? But it's water, and it was fresh, right? And I was desperate. And as they say, desperate people do desperate things. And I'm like, all right, I can do this. Most women lose their modesty when they, have a baby and go through childbirth and all that. It's like, you just don't care anymore, right? I suppose this was my moment, because it's like, I got to strip down naked and I got to try to take a bath in this so-called stream. And there I am. And I'm, by this point, I really know these guys. I mean, I've been with them for 3 years. My enlistment was coming up. So I trusted them. They were my brothers. And it was like, are they going to try and sneak a peek, or are they going to respect my privacy? And I had to stand there and really think hard about it. And I'm like, no, I trust these guys. And even if I don't trust one or two of them, the senior guy I do trust, and he won't let them, come bother me. So I did. And I remember I had to spread my feet as far as I could just to get my head low enough into the stream to get my head wet and to literally wash my hair. And it was, I can only imagine what my, white ass looked like in the middle of the jungle, where everything is brown and black and dark green, and you get this big white ass. So, cause I've always had junk in the trunk. That even in my thinnest, I had a big ass. So that was me trying to bathe in the jungle.
I'm dying.
Yes. Told you, I call it like it is. I'm like, when I was getting ready to retire, I told everybody, and I'm like, if you think I'm unfiltered now, I said, you wait till I hang up this uniform. I'm like, the filter is gone. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to call everything out like it is. I have no shame, I don't care.
Except for, in the woods, there are no bathrooms.
This is true. Yeah, and I'm still this is still an issue for me. Has not changed. No. I don't think I've met very few, extremely rare occasion. I've met women who are willing to shit in the woods. Okay, poop in the woods, whatever you want to call it. Okay. It's just one of those things. Like I know married couples, like in front of their own husband. No, we need our privacy during that time. That's just where the line gets drawn. So yeah, I want to say it was like 7th day in there, and I was getting a bit cranky. Now, mind you, I wasn't eating and drinking a lot because I would only pee right before the sun rose, just as there was enough light so I could see where I was going, and just, before sunset when there was just enough that was. So I was watching my intake so I wouldn't have to go to the bathroom a lot. And even though it's the jungle and it's Panama, it was so much shade that it really wasn't like the heat wasn't that bad. It's like a rainforest, right? Okay. So I wasn't like I was worried about dehydrating or anything. Like I was able to stay hydrated, but and it wasn't like I was sweating it out or anything. So yeah. So 7th day gets in, and I'm getting a little bit edgy because I've been holding it for a few days, and you know how it is when you've been holding it. And the guys are like, why are you being such a bitch? And by this point, they've been screwing with me and pranking me. And I'm the FNG, the new guy. So everything's being directed at me. And, later they told me, they were trying to make me break. They were trying to make me say uncle and quit. And there was no way I was not quitting, because I'm like, dude, I volunteered for this crap. I'm not quitting no matter how bad it gets. I told myself I'm not quitting. So, but at the same token, it doesn't mean I was exactly happy and enjoying myself. Right. Sure. So 7th day gets in, and they're just like, why are you being such a bitch? And da 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 da. And I'm just like, well, shut up, leave me alone, and you guys are getting on my nerves, and blah. So then one of them was like, I know what's wrong with you. And I'm like, oh yeah, what? And he says, you haven't shit the whole time you've been out here, have you? And I was just like crap, he knows. And I'm like, no. So, and he goes, you can't do that. Now, this is when I learned the difference between men and women. Y'all are very serious about this issue. You must go, most men that I know, you must go every day. You investigate it. You look at its shape, its color, how much. If it's a large, you'll take a picture of it. You'll show it with your buddies. I know guys that share it with their wives. Honey, look what I did. Right? Y'all are weird when it comes to this stuff.
We
don't do that.
That are aficionados. Yes.
Yes, I know. This is when I learned that, right? So they are freaking out because I haven't pooped since I've been in the woods. Like they think that I'm going to spontaneously combust and just blow up, because I have not pooped in a week. So God bless their hearts. They were worried for my well-being. That night they drew up there. See, every night they would go out. A few of them would go out and they would do reconnaissance ops or surveillance, ops. They would leave the camp and they would go do whatever, and they'd come back. It's always in the middle of the night. I was never invited on one of those. I was stuck at the camp. So, but that particular night they came and they said, okay, we got the ops plan for tonight. Donna, you're coming. And I'm like, what? What are we doing? Just come on. You'll see. They found an old abandoned lighthouse on the Panama Canal, and they burglarized it so I could use the toilet in the abandoned room at the top. They found me a bathroom in an old abandoned lighthouse. No running water, nothing, but it was a toilet and it was a seat, and I didn't care. I was happy. So I went up, did my business, came down, and it was funny because I was dumb enough. I actually packed, I don't remember how that worked, but somehow I had toilet paper. So I don't remember how I got the toilet paper, but I had it. And I came down and I was skipping down the dock on the way back to the boat. Like, I feel good. No. Like the whole James Brown song thing going on in my head, And then that was it. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I won't need to go again. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, oh yeah, women, we can hold it for a while. We're good. We're we're contrary to what you guys think, we are not going to die if we go a little while without pooping, So it was just hilarious. So that was when I learned how very, very important that is on y'all's priority list. You must go every day. And if you don't go by a certain hour, you start getting worried because you have a routine.
Yes. Attention veteran businesses. Do you want an easy way to be certified as a veteran-owned business? Do you want a better way to show it off in the same hard-charging fashion as our old unit badges? You want an easier way to be found, get business write-ups, interviews, social media promotion, and more? VABOA.net has your six. Get access to over 20 hard-charging digital badges for web and social media shares that shows you are a certified veteran-owned business. You've earned it. Show it off. Visit avboa.net. Use code KNOCK6, that's KNOCKSIX. Get your digital badge today. There was another story in there about the howler monkeys, but we don't have to go into that. You read the book.
Vile bastards, that's all I'll say. Vile, hate them to this day. Vile creatures. God messed up when he made them.
Don't hold back, Donna. Let us know what you think.
I think you read the book. They'll find out why.
Yes. Fast forward. So you came up to your reenlistment date, and in this time frame, this was the do more with less, right? And you were not afforded the opportunity to reenlist.
Right. Because I was a female in a rating that I had too many women. So yeah, I had to get cut loose. Sucked.
So then you stumbled around and read the book, but you stumble around for a while and you end up in South Florida.
Central Florida.
Central Florida. Florida nonetheless.
Yeah.
And you go on a ride along. And there was a drunk guy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, drunk guy. Well, he didn't pay his cab. Yeah. So this drunk guy went out clearly drinking, and this was before we had Uber and all this stuff. It was taxi cabs back then. Well, still taxi cabs, but we didn't have Uber yet. So he gets a taxi home, and he went inside supposedly to get the money to pay the cab driver, and never comes back out. And the cab driver's pissed because he thinks he's been stiffed, for the cab fare. So he calls us, and it's technically a petty theft of services, right? So we're beating on the door. No answer. Go walk around, look inside. We're like, we know you're in there. Come on. This is so stupid. This is one of those stupid, come on, dude, just do the right thing kind of thing. And so the cab driver told us the guy was really drunk. So we start listening, and we hear this noise coming from the other side of his front door. And it was no noise like I ever heard. And then every now and then you could hear what sounded like maybe a snore, but there was some other sound going along with it. And it was like, what the hell? It was like aliens or some crazy shit. I mean, it was just, what is that? So finally somebody peeked, could see through a tiny little peek in the blinds, and they could see him passed out on the other side of his friend. Like he went in his front door, and he must have slid down and slid right down. And he was laying right on the other side of his front door, passed out. So we called the fire department, and we did a forced entry for a check on the well-being, because, people get alcohol poisoning, they vomit, they aspirate, so we're just, at this point, we're looking at it from a render aid, check on his well-being kind of a thing. So we get inside and let the fire department do their job. He was on a normal day, probably 6 foot, 150 pounds, just an average looking guy, not like super skinny, but no fat on him either. Right.
Okay.
But he looked 9 months pregnant. I mean, his belly was so, what's the word I'm looking for? Extended. Mm-hmm. And that was what we heard was his stomach. And it was like wicked weird. And finally he came to, and it was like, his stomach was brewing. He was going to probably vomit eventually, but it was making some of the weirdest sounds I ever heard in my life. And I just remember thinking, man, I know there were stupid people in this world, but this is like a whole nother level, like it was crazy. And it was just one crazy call after another. Cause I want to say it was a Saturday night. It was midnight shift, so we got all the crazy drunks and the stupid stuff. And it was exciting and it was fun. And I liked it because it wasn't monotonous. And that was the night that I decided, I think I would like law enforcement. I think this is something I'd like to do.
And you were hooked.
Oh, I was hooked. Yeah. Cause we ran code 3 a bunch of times. It was a busy part of the county, and like the adrenaline, I was a serious adrenaline junkie. Like I was always chasing adrenaline rushes. So you know how it is when you're a brand new cop and you get to flip the lights on and ride along. Well, I was a civilian riding along, and we're running code, and and I worked for a bigger city. So it was very, very busy. we had shootings and murders and all kinds of stuff.
So you decide this is for you.
Yeah.
You graduate the academy, you get your first job, and then you become a courtesy officer, like all of us do, right? Your first department. I feel like there was a funny story in the book about your courtesy officer days.
There probably was, but I'm trying to remember which one is in there.
Yeah. So I can't remember.
Was it a guy and a girl having sex in the bathroom at the apartment complex?
Sure, we'll go with that.
Okay, because off the top of my head, that's the only one I can think of.
I have it in my show question notes to ask about the courtesy officer days. So, but I don't remember what was in the book at this point. So, I mean, you can go into that. I was a courtesy officer. I think we all do it.
Yeah.
To be able to afford somewhere to live, and it's a pain in the butt.
Oh, it's giant pain in the butt.
You got to pass out the late notices. You've got to lock the pool up. You've got to, depending on the complex, noise complaints.
Noise complaints were what drove me crazy.
Yeah.
Those were the worst because it was heavy walking, or it's like, really, I mean, what did you expect? You're on the ground floor of a building that was built cheap. I mean, yes, you're going to hear walking. So, yeah.
Well, then let's go to the funny and crazy things people say in the back seat.
Okay.
When you lock somebody up.
You talking about the guy that was at the women's dress store?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. So we get a call of a gentleman sitting in his car, sitting outside of a women's popular franchise dress for less store. Yeah, we should figure that one out. And we get there and we catch him having a party with himself while he's watching the pretty girls come and go from the store. He's quite creepy. And we ran him, and he was from out of county, so he didn't have any local history. But the reason we were able to get charges on him is one of the women that saw him had her teenage daughter with her. And of course, she was a minor, so we were able to get statements from them and get charges because we wanted to make sure this guy didn't come back and do this stuff anymore. Like, he traveled to Orlando just to do this. And he was from about 2 hours away. So found out that in his town where he was from and the surrounding counties, he had been trespassed from every dress store there was for the same thing. So he had some issues. So I arrest him, and I'm on the way to the jail, and there was something going on, but the traffic was just at a dead stop, and I'm stuck, not moving. And he's apparently very lonely, shocking. And, I know, right. And, he's, how they get their face right up against the thing, when you're in the driver's seat, and he's trying to talk to me, and you sure are pretty. And I'm just like ignoring him, turn the radio up a little bit louder.
Yep.
You got a boyfriend? Turn the radio up a little bit louder. And he keeps going. He keeps like, he's not going to give up. He's just yelling louder and louder. And then finally he goes, are you married? I said, yep, 10 kids. All the way up I go. Just kept on going. I couldn't get him out of my car fast enough. Oh, that was gross. Hated it.
Yeah, people say the strangest things.
Really, dude? Really? Yeah. I'm taking you to jail. How desperate could you be?
I mean, he drove 2 hours just to beat you.
Not to beat me, to beat himself.
No, to meet you.
To meet me.
Yes.
I thought you said beat me. And I'm like, no, he was busy beating himself.
Meet with an ill.
No, meet. No, it wasn't. We just went down the rabbit hole on that one, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Come back around. So I had a koozie that I would put behind my headrest, facing the people in the back screen. It would mesh between the headrest and the screen. on the
Okay.
prisoner screen. And the koozie said, "You have the right to remain silent. So shut up."
Nice.
Yeah. So when they would start rambling things like that, I would reach over to my pursuit pack, grab the koozie, slide it right there behind my head. And sometimes that worked. Not all the time, but sometimes it did.
Yeah. No, people would say things to me on occasion, not common, that made you just like stop and wonder, what the hell? I mean, like, what planet are you from?
Yes.
I had a guy, get this shit. I arrested him for something super petty, like really, like I was shoplifting. I mean, it was something dumb, but he was drunk. And what happens when people are drunk and start talking? Do they tend to lie or do they tend to tell you too much of the truth?
Diarrhea of the mouth.
Bingo. So he says to me, "Oh, I'm so glad you're just arresting me for shoplifting." He says, "I thought you were picking me up for killing my wife this morning." True story. He did it.
What?
Guy murdered his wife that morning, got drunk and went shoplifting, and he got arrested for shoplifting. And then spontaneously in the back of my car says, "I'm sure glad it's just shoplifting you arrested me for. I thought it was for killing my wife this morning."
Wow.
And I was like,
detective of the year.
I just said, "Come again?"
Yes.
Like you're kidding, right? And he's like, "Nah, man." He goes, I'm like, "Well, where is she?" And he goes, "I dumped her over there in the other county, so y'all couldn't find her."
Oh. Well, where
Okay.
should you not look?
Right? So yeah, sure enough, they went and they followed up on the investigation, and he did. They found her. Yeah.
Stupid
Idiot.
Yeah, stupid.
I wish I'd had a camera in my car for that one. That would have been
Right?
awesome.
Yeah. That didn't come
I mean,
out.
I feel sorry for that lady. I mean, it's not
Yes.
funny. That one's not a funny subject because he did something horrible, but that actually did happen.
That's crazy. Speaking of crazy, you want to tell the story about the businessman you caught with
Oh no, I don't want to tell that one.
You don't want to tell that one?
No.
Read the book.
Read the book for that one. No, I can't. Some things will not come out of verbally.
Yeah.
Let me choose my words very carefully here.
We'll
Things we will not speak of.
Okay.
That one's it's hilarious.
It is.
I mean, I'm with you. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And the FTO of all FTOs, that was where it got hilarious because he's supposed to be the veteran, right? He's supposed to be the one with his shit together. He threw up all over the place. Threw up.
Yeah. Read the book.
Yeah, that one's bad. I mean, don't get me wrong. People will laugh that this is the kind of crap that we see, but I can't speak of that.
No, I ran into that on more than one occasion in certain parts of the different departments that I worked at. Moving on. So we talked about the NCIS a little earlier, and I told you there'd be a follow-up question to that story.
I'm afraid I know what it is. Go ahead.
No, maybe you do. After you got into your law enforcement career and started conducting your own investigations, how do you feel about the way NCIS treated you as a potential suspect?
Oh God, that's not what I thought you were going to ask.
I didn't think it was, but
see, I don't even think I ever really gave that a second thought because I was only questioned. I didn't get in trouble. The whole thing just got dropped and went away. And I just always looked at it like they were just doing their job.
Did they run good cop, bad cop?
Probably. I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm not lying to you. I mean, I just remember thinking, oh, please God, because I mean, I trusted the men that were behind me. I trusted them not to send me up the river. Mm-hmm. I knew they would not do that. It was a matter of just getting through the interview until the whole ridiculousness of it got cleared up, because it was just a prank. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
With that said, though, I did 1 year, one very, very long, miserable year in the courthouse, because I thought, you know, I was a new mom and it was the only gig available that allowed me to keep, you know, like work hour, you know, like
Right.
regular hours. And I had to listen to a trial of a prank gone wrong, where it was very clear that the young man who played the prank meant absolutely no harm. And it got blown completely out of proportion by my own agency. Of course, I couldn't say that then. I can say it now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those where I sat there pissed because it embarrassed me. Like, we're wasting tax dollars on a freaking prank where nobody got hurt. Now, if somebody got hurt, that's different.
Right.
But nobody got hurt. And it was just utter ridiculousness. I'll tell you what the kid did. And thank God the jury found him not guilty. Thank God, because they recognized it for what it was, a prank, right? So, you know, those little toys that you can wind up and they click until they go off. It was like a little freaking toy. So this young kid found one of these things, and they were landscapers. And I guess they'd accidentally mowed over it. And all that was left was the part that you can twist and it would go click. But the rest of I think it was like a duck or like a hopping chicken or something. So like the toy was mangled, but the only part that was left was the part that actually made the sound. So he thought it would be funny to put in his boss's gas tank area, you know, where you open the gas hatch and you put it in and you close the gas hatch. So he thought it would be funny to put it in there. And so the boss, I guess, got in his car and went home and got out of his car and didn't notice it until he got out of his car and he walked by it as he was walking in his house. And he heard it and he called the police because he thought it was a bomb ticking. So he thinks that somebody's placed a bomb on his car.
One of the rival landscaping companies trying to do him in.
Right. Yes. Of course. Had to be them.
Mm-hmm.
So they call out the agency and they hear it and they treat it like, you know, a real, like we would a bomb threat, right? They evacuated the freaking neighborhood, got the neighbors out of their house. Like, it's like the whole kit and caboodle, right? Bomb squad comes in with the suits and the robots and all that crap. And they find it. The kid shows up. He gets a phone call about what's going on. And he shows up to tell the truth. Like, it was just a prank, you know, like he totally told the truth from the get-go. Well, somebody, and I know who, and we'll go nameless, but somebody on the bomb squad has a very, very big ego and thinks he's God's gift to all of law enforcement. And I guess that he got really pissed that this was what it was and not something real, you know. So they decided to make an example of the young lad and arrested him and charged him with planting a hoax bomb. And it went all the way to freaking trial.
What?
I couldn't believe it.
Office didn't see
I
it.
know, they should have totally dropped it.
Yeah.
But they had some of these lawyers, like, they just want trial time. They just want the experience. I'm like, dude, you have any idea what you're putting people through because you want to get a little bit of experience? Where has the common sense in this world gone to? Right. And I sat there fuming, going, thank God they weren't charged when I was in the military. We'd all be in freaking the brig. You know, I'm like, this is ridiculous. And, you know, I was so glad the jury saw it for what it was and they found him not guilty. But it's just, yeah, like, so stupid shit like that, you know. But does that answer your question? I treated all calls with, if I'm dealing with a scumbag who's got a long criminal history, I got no sympathy. I got nothing. But if I'm dealing with a young kid who's never been in trouble, I always tried to look back to when I was younger and some of the stupid shit that I saw or did and said, okay, kiddo, let's think about this for a minute. This is what could have happened, you know, and these things do happen. So you need to be a lot more careful with the jokes and the pranks that you play because they can go wrong. And thank God somebody didn't get hurt or, you know, whatever. I always tried through my career to be that cop, because it's the other ones that we all know give us bad names.
Yep.
You know, so yeah.
Well, speaking of that, what do you think is or was the most important call or case in your law enforcement career?
That I personally worked,
Mhm.
like that I personally investigated. It was a sex crimes case. It was a young girl who I absolutely did not believe initially, because unfortunately, we have way too many that lie. You know, they're grounded. They took their phone away. They won't let me see my boyfriend. Whatever, and they make up these lies, or they're just looking for attention, or it's always something. There's always a motive somewhere, unfortunately. And I went there, and this girl, you took one look at her, and she didn't look credible at all. She looked like a wild child. And so my initial instinct was, oh, she's making crap up. She's just mad at her stepdad because he's put his foot down, or mom's put her foot down, or whatever. The more I talked to her, though, the more I knew she was telling the truth. And her stepdad had been molesting her for quite a while, which explained why her behavior was the way it was. He had created this mess. It didn't just happen, right? But the more I talked to her, her story did not change. She knew details that somebody lying wouldn't have thought through, and I spent hours. I mean, I think I spent all night, because the call came in around 8:00 at night. And I want to say it was literally all night going over everything. And he wouldn't crack. I tried getting a confession out of him. He wouldn't crack, but he couldn't give me any answers that discredited her either. He was basically a whole lot of, she's lying. Don't know what to tell you. She's lying. I want my lawyer. I'm like, that's it.
Yep.
Well, why is she lying? Why would she say this? I mean, nothing, So we arrested him, and that when it went to depo, the defense attorney tried really, really hard to crack me and I think test me to see what I would be like on the stand. And I looked at the defense attorney straight in the eye, and I said, you used to be a cop. I said, how in the hell can you defend a monster like this? Like, how do you sleep at night? And she's like, oh, it's all just a game. I'm like, no, it's not just a game. This is a young girl who's completely fucked up because of the things that he's done to her. How in the hell can you sleep at night? I'm like, I don't know how you do it. And I just kind of went off. And then when we got out in the hallway and we were off the record, she tried to act like we were friends, and everything was just like, it was like I just went and made a deposit at the bank. It was like business, And I just looked at her and I went, you go to trial. I said, he's going to prison. I said, I will make sure of it. I said, I am 100% sure this child is telling the truth. And they ended up pleading. He didn't go to trial. So I feel like I got, and the sad part is the girl had been telling her mom, and her mom didn't believe her. And I talked to the mom and I said, shame on you. You should have at least given her a thread of an opportunity, to prove that she was telling the truth. And you did absolutely nothing. I said, your daughter's telling the truth. And then the mom, once she realized that, she was wrong, she cried, and I think in the long run, she ended up doing the right thing by the girl. But that's the one part that sucked about what we did is, you never know whatever happens to them afterwards. Like, I wonder to this day, that was so many years ago, and I still wonder whatever became of her. Did she get it together? Did she straighten her life out? I hope she did. I really do hope for her sake she did. But anyway, now we're going deep again.
Very seldom do we get the follow-up outside of whatever the disposition of the case once it's adjudicated. Whatever happens. I feel like there could be an entire TV series of what's next after all of these cases that we worked. But anything I left out about your book?
I'll just say this. I have been approached at signings by people who bought my book online and have sought me out because they heard it was going to be somewhere. And, they brought me the book that they already had to sign or whatever. And I've had several that were prior law enforcement or firefighters. And they have privately thanked me for sharing it because it gave them the courage to kind of like address their issues on their own, on the down. I call it on the down low, because a lot of people, let's face it, don't trust their agencies to protect them or to understand. Just because I'm struggling to sleep at night and I'm having nightmares or I'm having anger issues doesn't mean I'm going to go on a freaking killing rampage, which is what the media would want people to believe, right? It just means that we're struggling, and I want people to understand that it is totally okay to start talking to somebody before you start going down that rabbit hole, before you start thinking that there's no other options, before the demons get in your head and tell you that you're better off dead and that you're a failure at this and a failure at that. And, don't let that happen. If you know that look at your own red flags. If you're having marital issues because you don't talk to your wife or your husband, if you're having marital issues because you're angry all the time, if you're drinking more than you used to because you're trying to self-medicate, if you're doing any of these things, don't wait until those actions cost you your career, whether it's a DUI, whether it's a domestic violence issue, whether it's, losing your shit on a call and getting that complaint that you probably deserved, right? Because you lost your shit, right? Don't wait till that happens. Get help sooner, because the sooner you start just literally just talking to someone who understands, the better off you'll be. And when I say talking to somebody, it doesn't have to be your kumbaya, let's hold hands therapist, right? No, those are a waste of time, right? I went to one and it was a nightmare. So I speak from experience. There are so many opportunities out there for us that we just don't know about. There are retreats. T6 up in Montana. Jesse Holton is a former Marine combat veteran and retired law enforcement officer. He bought tons of acreage up in Montana, and he does retreats for first responders, for veterans, spousal retreats, and now family retreats. Because I know as a single parent, my daughter has unfortunately paid some of the consequences of my PTSD. It rubs off on our children. They start to become hypervigilant. They start to have trust issues. They start to feel on edge because why? Mom or dad is always on edge. So before you go and you wreck yourself or you wreck your family, go get some help first. And don't wait till you're, suicidal and you need to be drug off to the mental hospital. Don't let it get that far. And there's equine therapy. There's, for me, it was a dog. I got a dog who was very, very in tune to me. He's now my service dog. And that was it's in the book, but that was part of me acknowledging that I had a problem, because I was in utter denial that I had a problem because I was so afraid of the stigma of it.
Right.
So my mission is, yes, Courageously Broken is the name of my book, but my mission is to erase the stigma of PTSD. It's not what people think it is. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean you're going to go on a killing rampage. It doesn't mean you're going to commit suicide. It just means that you've seen things that the human brain shouldn't have to see on a regular basis, right? And it is going to affect you. But there are ways to address that and then put it to rest and move on with your life, right? It won't go away, but you can learn to manage it to the point where it's not even there anymore. And that's where I am now. I'm in a much better place,
Good.
Than I was in 2017, 5 years ago. I'm stuck at math. Was it 4 years ago? I'm a typical cop. I suck at math.
Just a couple more days.
Yeah. Okay. 4 years ago. So, yeah, no, that's my mission. I and people can find tons of resources on my website, which is courageouslybroken.com. If they go onto my about link and they drop down to the PTSD resources, There are a few there that I have vetted that I know to be good. They're nonprofit. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You don't have to go into some sort of intake facility and be gone from your family forever. I mean, there's just such a variety. And exciting news, you get to hear it first. I'm launching a new business called Heroes United to Heal. We just licensed it. For short, it's going to be HU2H. It'll be a special link on my website in January. It's officially launching January. And what we're doing is we're taking this to the next step. So we are going to be doing, we're going to have a one-stop shop page where people can go and look at all the different resources out there. There's everything from hunting expeditions, scuba diving, all over the country. There are places for us run by people just like us who get it. And they're actually fun, but healing at the same time, right? So it doesn't have to be that kumbaya counselor like we all think it's going to be. There's so many different varieties of ways to get help and build relationships with others just like you. Because now you've built a circle of trust because you get that everybody in your circle is struggling through the same things, right? Kind of like AA, but for PTSD, right?
Right.
We check on each other. We do buddy checks, and we become great friends. And then the goal, our hope, if anybody out there can help with this, reach out to me. We want to make a goal for 2023. We want to do a benefit concert / comedy benefit for veterans and first responders with PTSD. And the money will go to, depending on how much we raise, will go to one or more of the nonprofits that, I will have vetted and work with. So, Officer Daniels, Mike the cop, who you guys are out there. If you see this, could use your help, reach out. I've got some country music artists that I've connected with that I know are already on board that support this whole PTSD mission. And we want the suicide numbers to go away, not just go down. We want them to go away. And the sooner we can erase the stigma and let people know that it's okay not to be okay and that there really is help out there that you can trust, the better off we will all be. Because there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. I know some of the toughest, most macho men on the planet that have said, you know what, I needed to get some help because I was going to end up with a divorce or I was going to kill myself if I didn't. And that's what we want. We want happy marriages. I've never been happily married. I've never been married, period. That's my own issue. I'm picky. Listen, this is it. I built my little kingdom and I like it. I don't want anybody messing it up.
Okay.
Right. So you better be coming with something. If I'm gonna let you inside my circle, but whatever. I do just fine on my own. I'm happy that way. But I know a lot of really, really good people that, are going through troubles, and it's because of this, because it does take a toll once somebody goes home behind closed doors and then, they retreat and they withdraw and it can really take a toll on a relationship. So I just want, we work hard, and what we do, we deserve to be happy. So.
Agreed. Amen. Sister, preach.
Well, I can preach.
Well, if Mike the cop or Officer Daniels is watching this, please come on the show.
Right? Oh my God! Imagine what a hoot that would be.
It would be great.
Yes.
Anyway, so that is an exclusive for the Knock and Talk show. A quick sneak peek into the future of Courageously Broken and its empire. Imagine that, Donna. You have an empire now.
I don't know about an empire, but definitely a mission. I will say this is I consider this like the fourth chapter of my life, and it's by far definitely been worth it. It's already far exceeded my wildest expectations, and I am loving every minute of it. Now, if I could just get all my freaking pain to go away, I'd be good. I've just gone through my second shoulder surgery in a year. And I've got some spinal pain from a car crash in 2016 I'm dealing with, but we're working on it. I'm not gonna let it hold me down.
Good. Always moving forward, right?
That's right.
Always moving forward. Well, I guess now is as good a time as any to hit the. What do you think of the song?
I like it.
Yeah.
Sounds sounds familiar.
Hope not. I bought the license for it.
Really?
Yeah. But this has been a great show. I have thoroughly enjoyed, and it made the stories in the book come alive. So for those that plan on reading, you should, and hopefully today's episode will help those stories come alive to you. And there were a few others in this. I mean, there was all kinds of things.
You were ready.
I was. But just read the book. It's a great book. It's got a great mission behind the book, and an awesome author.
Read the reviews. If you don't trust us, read the reviews. Reviews back it up. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Donna, again, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate your service to both the country and your community.
You as well.
A lot of sacrifices, and they have not gone unnoticed. So be well, stay safe, and folks, we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.